Hello again. I am sick today, so I made this video so that you will be able to finish your house drawing project without me present. And I believe most of you have gotten to the point where your house looks something like this. You've got your walls, windows, doorknob, and a chimney. A lot of you, not all of you. And if you're not to this point yet, you could pause this video and keep working. I'd like to point out that for the windows, for the wall position, we centered that on this canvas here. For the windows, we put them at 1/4 of the way in the walls, and then we put them, or the second window, the right window, 3/4 of the way in. I centered my door, and then for my doorknob, that is kind of up to you. I went with a more oval shape rather than a circle shape. And then I positioned it slightly over halfway down the door, and I positioned it here on the left-hand side. So, but for the doorknob, that one is more of an experiment on your part. Same kind of deal with the chimney. I basically used a similar concept as when I made the door, except as you can see, it's just a bit smaller. I'm not sure if that chimney is going to turn out super well after we do the roof, but we're going to find out. Because now we get to see how to do the roof. Now, let me go ahead and get all distractions out of the way and zoom on in. Okay, so for drawing the roof, it's completely different from the G-oval and G-polygon, except in one way, which is that we start by instantiating the roof. Object, sorry. I was just thinking, I could also start by saying initializing. When I say initializing, to initialize a variable just means assign it a value for the first time, and instantiate means to create an instance of an object. So we are doing both here. We are going to create an instance of G-polygon and use it to initialize the roof variable that we created several days ago up here. So we can start by initializing the roof. Then the way that a G-polygon works is instead of telling it what its width and height are, because that totally depends on what kind of polygon you have, because a polygon means it could be many different shapes, we are going to tell it where all of its vertices are. And in the case of a triangle, that means there's going to be 3 vertices. And then it will actually connect the dots itself. We just have to put the vertices in the correct positions, which is pretty neat. So what I'm going to do, I guess I'll just say add vertices to roof, add roof to canvas, and that will get us our roof on screen. So to initialize the roof, we need to just simply reference the variable that we've already made. And since we've already declared it, we don't have to put the data type. We just have to use the name. And the name is roof, of course. So roof. And then hopefully you all know what happens right here. If you want to mess around a bit, pause the video and take a look and make sure you're getting this right. So it's roof equals and then a new G polygon. Now, unlike the, you can provide some stuff here. However, we're not going to keep this simple. Unlike the G-oval and G-rect, again, the G-polygon does not get told what its width and height are. Those are determined after we add the vertices to it. You can add the vertices when you make it, so you can do this backwards, but just to make it a little bit simpler, I'm going to do it in this order, where we create the polygon and then we tell it where its vertices are. Okay. Now, there is a method built into any instance of G-polygon. Now remember, roof is a G-polygon, so if we do roof.addVertex, then we get to type in an X and Y position for that vertex. Now, I like to do it this way, where the first vertex, let me go ahead and put a little space here, just because I like it that way. What I like to do for this first vertex is put it in the top left corner of the walls. And then the next vertex, I like to make the top right corner of the walls. And then I like to make this the peak of the roof for the third one. And the positions of these vertices are actually really easy. So we're just going to call add vertex 3 different times. Now, I strongly encourage you to do this yourself, or try to do this yourself, before watching the rest of the video, and see if you can get the roof up yourself. So pause here and try to get, oh, of course we have to call the add method and put add roof. Now, interestingly here, we don't actually have to put the X and Y position of the roof, because the vertices will determine what that X and Y position are for us, so we don't actually have to worry about it. Now, again, pause the video right here and see if you can get the positions for your roof correct before I go through them with you. Okay, and we're back. So if you've been struggling to add the vertices to your roof, let's start with the first one. Now there's, because it's the easiest. Now you could do what we did before and do like the double X equals blah blah blah, and the double Y equals, and I'll put 0 so that I don't have syntax errors, and then you could just put XY, and then you could reassign X to some new number and Y to some other new number, and then just use them again, so you can just recycle as you go. That's totally fine. However, at least for this first one, it's so short, there's not even really a reason to do it. Because the top left corner of the walls is a combination of walls.getX, because it's the X position of the walls, and then the other coordinate must be walls.getY, because as we learned, all of these objects originate in their top left corner. So that will get me the proper vertex for the top left corner. Now, if you were just kind of stuck on what to do, and now that you've seen this, you get the idea for how to continue and do the rest of the vertices, please pause again and try to do the rest of the vertices. Okay, so we're back, and for the second vertex, this is the top right corner of the walls. So the first thing to recognize is we probably want to start with walls.getX, and we can just go ahead and put walls.getY in again as well. And then think to ourselves, does the Y position even change? No, because we want the top of the walls. All that changes is the X position. We're further to the right, which means I need to add to this. The question would be, how much further to the right? And if you think about it, it's like, okay, well, I'm going from the left corner to the right corner, and what is that distance? Or how can I get that distance? And just like when we were doing this stuff before, we can just do walls.getWidth, and that'll take us from the left corner and then add the distance from the left corner to the right corner. So as you can see, really easy. Now for this third one, this is the one that's going to have the most going on. But again, I highly recommend that if you're getting the answers, you pause the video, try it yourself, and then I'll be right here to give you the answer in just a second. Okay. So for the left vertex, or sorry, not the left, the middle, the upper peak of the roof vertex, it's a good idea to go ahead and start with walls.getX and walls.getY again. But this time, we don't want the peak of the roof to be all the way to the right. We want it to be in the center of the walls and then up. So we are going to change both the X and Y positions this time. But let's go ahead and get it centered on the walls. That's going to be pretty easy. We just need to add half of the width of the walls, and that will get us the middle of the walls. And because this is a vertex and not an object that's going to draw out to the right, we don't actually have to do the subtraction part where we subtract half of the thing, because it's just a single point in space. Now, as far as walls.getY, how tall should our roof be? I would say it's best to do it about half of the height of the walls as far as how we should go. Now, note I did a subtract here, or I'm doing minus, because the Y position of the walls or sorry, not the walls, the roof, the peak of the roof, I want to be above the top of the walls. And we know that positive y is down in this system, so we have to subtract. And I'm just going to put walls.getHeight divided by 2. And I've already added the roof to the screen, so if I run, I should have, at this point, a handy little roof. And it's going to look a little bit weird with the chimney because nothing's colored in yet, but we're going to go ahead and jump to the coloring in of everything. All right, so let's get to that. For coloring things in, I'm going to go ahead and minimize my draw roof method. I'm just going to come over here, boop, gone. And let's go ahead and make sure we have imported. I think I already did this in class, but just in case, let's import java.awt.color with a capital C. Be careful, there is a lowercase c color, and we want capital C color. Now, let's add a method to our list. After we draw the roof, let's make a private, well, actually, you don't have to worry about the private part. You can just stick to void, and we'll call it color house. I need to center my keyboard when I'm going to be typing this much. There we go. Not a semicolon. Okay. Color house. And then in the parentheses here, we're not going to have any parameters. That's going to be the same as everything else. We just have to first create all the colors we want. Can't? Did I really just type that? I'm tired, guys. Create all the colors we want to use. And then we just have to apply those colors to the objects. So this is actually a really easy step. And you did this in the Hello World project as far as like the creating the colors goes. So I want you to try to do this on your own, using what you already know from the Hello World project on how to create colors, or just in general in programming. We know that we want to create a variable where the data type is capital C color, and then you can name it whatever you want. For example, wall color equals new color object, and then we put in some 3 numbers. 0, 0, 0 is really easy, and we'll get this little block so that we can use a color picker to choose the colors we want. And you're going to want to do that for all of the different objects that we have here. Okay? So I'm not going to do the rest of them. You can at least do that on your own. And just so you understand what we're doing, and think to yourself about this, the answer to this question, is this a local variable or an instance variable? It's a local variable. Why? Because it's written, it was declared inside of a method. The declare part is whenever we create a variable for the first time and we say what its data type is and what its identifier is. That's declaration. If I use just the identifier later, that's not the same thing. That's just for doing assignment. So like all these instance variables up here, we're declaring them, but we don't assign them until their respective methods, like with the walls, right? Right here is where we do our initial assignment or initialization. All right, now to apply the colors to the objects, if I take any of these G objects that we've made, like the walls, you'll see that they have a set color method, but when I start typing that in, you'll see that there's also a set fill color. And we actually want the second one here because every one of these G objects, unlike a G label, all of these shapes have, and I'm going to go ahead and put wall color in here, and I'll pick a color. Let's go kind of like a red. Okay, so every one of these objects has 2 different colors. They have a fill color. Oh, I forgot to call this method. Silly me. Notice how the method's name is, or identifier is gray. So I need to go up to the run method, and just down here at the very bottom, I'm going to call color house. Make sure that you do this as the very last method, because if you do it before anything else, what would happen, like if I made this the first method I call, this color house, would be I would try to color the walls, but because the draw walls method hasn't run yet. The walls have not been initialized right here. And so I would get a runtime error where I would get a null reference exception on my walls. So that's might be a lot of complicated jargon, but to put it really simply, if I tried to color the walls before they existed, my program will crash. Same thing with any of these other things. So make sure that color house is your last method inside of run. Okay. So with the fill color set, there's one other thing that needs to be done, which is that by default, none of these objects are actually filled in. So we have to call one more method called setFilled. And you can actually kind of see here, I'm going to stretch this out. You can see in the autofill that the setFilled method that we're trying to call requires you to pass in a Boolean, and that's true if you want it filled and false if you don't. We want to set the walls to filled be true. And you can do this in either order. We could set filled and then set the color. It doesn't actually matter as long as we make sure that we've done both. There we go. Now I've got my red walls. And I need to do this for all of my G objects that I want to color in. Okay, so with that, you should have everything you need to complete this assignment yourself. And I guess good luck. Cool. Oh, I guess one more thing. Just so you can see, I'll go ahead and create another color. And I don't know what color to use. Let's go with something. I need something really high contrast. So we're going to do this green color, even though it's going to be hideous. If I do just regular set color, you could probably guess based on what I called it, but regular set color affects the outline of our thing, which you actually probably can't really see very well, but if you look closely, you can see the green outline for the house. So if you want to go really custom on this entire thing, then you can also do outline or border colors. You're not required to, but, you know, experiment a bit and make your house truly your own. You will submit it by turning in a screenshot, just like we did with the Hello World project. So while it's running, you're going to press Windows Shift S. That'll give you your snip tool. And you're going to click and drag your snip tool. You can drag around the house and let go. And you're going to get this little notification in the bottom right. You're going to click that. So you're going to get this open. You're going to just simply click the save button and then make sure you save it to the right spot so that you can turn it in later. All right, good luck.